Hey there everyone, and welcome to Study with Sizakua. Today we're doing functions and graphs, and we're going to focus on the parabola, I don't know what you call it, but hey, just understanding this graph, and we're just going to be going through the basics of it. Make sure you are following me if you're not in this page. This is where I give you study tips, motivation, tutoring, career and university information. So yeah, make sure to subscribe. So basically functions and graph, you guys start doing them early on, like grade 10, and it's so important to just understand the basics, and that's what I want to be going through, because when you don't understand the basics, you're not going to be able to answer the questions in the exam. So whether you're in grade 10, 11 or 12, this is necessary to know, and I'm just going to be going through the basics this time around. Cool. So let's get into it. So we are looking at the parabola over here. So this is how the graph looks like. It is a quadratic graph, and based on the equation, so based on the quadratic equation where y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c, and you've been seeing this equation since like grade 9, I think, when you're doing factorization and all of that, and really just identifying how it is a parabola as well, or have the parabolic shape would be this two over here as well, if you were to ask to like draw it and you're just given the equation. But this is the general quadratic equation for it. Anyways, so let's get into how it looks like. So it's just the shape. This is the parabolic shape, and as you can see, it's just the smiley face, and this smiley face can be a sad face at the same time, and it can shift along the x-axis, the y-axis, and you need to understand all these shifts as well. So just starting with how the graph looks like, we're seeing that in the middle of the graph is what we call the axis of symmetry, right? The axis of symmetry is going to be this line over here, and this axis is basically, if you fold this graph in half, the left hand side and the right hand side will be like on top of each other because it is equal, or the same. It basically mirrors each other. So at the axis of symmetry, we know that it is at a certain x value, and this x value over here is where x is equals to negative b over 2a. Then we have the x-intercept. So where is the x-intercept? The x-intercept is where y is equals to 0. With this graph over here, there are two different x-intercepts, and in the first x-intercept, you're going to be using negative b, x is equals to negative b minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a, basically your quadratic equation, just to solve for what x is over here. And on the other side, you're going to be using x equals to negative b plus b squared minus 4ac, square root of all of that, over 2a. So basically understanding, like, this is where you have to apply this equation. It is in your formula sheets, but it's important to know it by head. B squared minus 4ac over 2a, and this will help you solve for the x values over here and the y values over here, because it is on the on the x-axis, the y value is going to be 0. So over here you'll find a value where x and 0, and then over here you'll find an x value x and 0, and obviously this side it's going to be negative because it falls on the other side of the 0, and this x over here is going to be positive because it falls on the other side of the 0. So just noting that. And then we're going to be looking at the y-intercept. Then over here we see that the y-intercept is where the graph touches the y-axis, right? So when we are trying to solve for the y-intercept, we will just let x equals to 0, and we just substitute that into our equation over here. And as we can see, where x is equals to 0, y is going to be equals to c. So if you were to substitute over here, because this is y equals to ax squared plus bx plus c, y equals to, now we're finding the y-intercept, so x is equals to 0. And so we substitute x equals to 0 in the quadratic equation. So it's going to be a 0 squared plus b times 0 plus c. All of this is 0. This is 0 because when you multiply by 0, it's 0. So y is equals to whatever the c value is over there. So as well over here, x is going to be 0 when you're writing the coordinates, and y is going to be like a particular number that you get from solving this equation. Then finally, we have the vertex. So this is the turning point, right? And the turning point of a parabola, the turning point is basically where the axis of symmetry is. This is where the left-hand side mirrors the right-hand side. And the x value there at the axis of symmetry is x equals to negative b over 2a. And if you are paying attention, you can actually notice that from this quadratic equation over here, the x value of the axis of symmetry is actually like this part over here, negative b over 2a. So basically, it is there in your exam sheet to understand like if where the axis of symmetry is, or what the x coordinate is of the turning point. So the x coordinate of the turning point over here, the x coordinate is equals to negative b over 2a. And then the y coordinate is negative brackets b squared minus 4ac over 4a. But you don't really need to like memorize this. What you can do is remember what the coordinate, what the value of the x value is, and then to find the y value, you will just need to substitute that into our equation, into whatever y equals to ax squared plus bx plus c, and substitute for x in order to find the y value. So these are just basics that I was covering. The questions they can ask you is find the x-intercept. When you're finding the x-intercept is where the graph touches the x-axis. So x is going to be equals to a certain number and y is equals to 0. And then they ask you to find the y-intercept. So this is where x is equals to 0. You substitute that into your equation to find the y-intercept over here. So this is where it touches the y-axis, and then find the turning point. You can know that you can find x is equals to negative b over 2a, and then you substitute x into the equation to find y. Thank you so much. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with your friends.